Hey, this episode was filmed during the COVID pandemic, so for the safety of our cast, everyone is seated 6 feet apart. Also, this series is for information and entertainment purposes only. It isn't intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, so don't delay or disregard professional medical advice based on the information provided. And, as always, if this is a medical emergency, dial 911.
Welcome to Going to Health.
For people, from people.
So this one time...
Oh, I'm gonna go get some tasty waves, bro.
Let me tell you about my experience with sports. I don't play them. Shocking, I know. But I do enjoy activities where I can stay on dry land and as close to the ground as possible, like stiff-arming someone to get that 75% off sweater at the mall. Well, today on Going to Health, we're going to talk about extreme sports and how athletes prepare, perform, and recover. Alongside me are my adventurous co-hosts, Haley Murphy and Carlos Castro III. When Haley is in deep-sea freediving, you can find her off-roading in the desert in her truck. Carlos is your SoCal poster man, surfing in the morning and snowboarding in the afternoon. I'd like to know what he does in the evening. Our esteemed guest is Dr. Robert Bray, who is a world-renowned spine and neurosurgeon, and his nickname is Dr. Fix-It. But I probably have too many problems for you to fix. As a transplant from the East Coast like me, Dr. Bray started his practice in LA, and in the past 5 years moved his practice to Newport Beach. So, Dr. Bray, what does your current practice look like?
I do spine surgery, but I founded a group that does all sports, from pro sports to action sports.
So I wanted to dive a little bit more into your history actually with the military and working with some of the extreme athletes, that athleticism that goes on in there, and your experience with healthcare.
Well, in the military, I was in charge of combat casualty medicine, which was the training course that took people and gave them an exposure and ran them through extreme stress, from sleep deprivation to physical stress to exposure to combat-like conditions. And a lot of that training we carried forward into dealing with elite athletes. It's a great deal about mental preparation, attitude, focus, and endurance of focus. To any of the elite performers, a lot of it's a head game, and the rest is good training and dedication.
Don't you want to look at somebody sometimes when they do something that they should not have done and say, what were you thinking?
My first question is the same. What schedule do I have to work with? When do you need to be back, in what condition?
Right.
And what do you want to do? Because I have to learn their sport. And I've been with Redbull 13 years now. It crosses everything.
So, Dr. Bray, I have a question in regards to extreme sports. Being in San Diego, there's a huge growing community for off-roading and overlanding. I got the opportunity to go on an advanced off-road course, and there I actually got the opportunity to meet a man called Ironman Stewart, and he's actually won the Baja 500 and the Baja 1000 numerous times. The toll that it takes to be driving off-road for really 500, 1,000 miles at a racing speed. So how would you even begin to prepare your body for that?
You bring up a very unique field because it's very physical.
Yeah.
It's very demanding, and you have that cross where a great deal of it is endurance but mental, and you're doing it properly. You're learning the basics and learning to push the limit. To prepare, you have to think of it broken down. I like to break it down into segments of preparation. You have to think about the different pieces. Nutrition and hydration. How are you going to hold up for that period of time? You lose 10% of your performance for every liter of water you lose. So you can't afford to be dehydrated and not perform.
And you can't afford to stop and use the bathroom.
You can't afford to stop either. So you don't want to drink because you don't want to pee. But if you don't, you have to.
And these are the things we're talking about. How do you prepare for something like that?
You hydrate and you pee.
Right,
You're better off with the performance and not crashing the vehicle.
Well, typically in the Baja, right, in the Baja, there's two drivers, but Ivan did it all by himself.
Yeah.
which
Again, it's balance. It's strength, conditioning, a great deal to do with flexibility. They've got to be able to handle the jostles, the bumps, the twists, the turns, the throws without pulling something out of line. But the injuries happen when you mentally fatigue or you're not prepared. So you do it within a limit.
So out of all your customers that you have, which ones are your number ones? You got surfers, you got snowboarders, BMX, motocross, and who are your number one customers, and typically what injuries or problems do you typically see?
It crosses so many that it's a little hard to put that as just one. If you look at the United States, you could go to the CDC site. Most of the injuries, 60+% of injuries, are in young kids up to 23, 24 years old. Okay, so 60% of sports injuries are in that window.
I missed that window because I broke my collarbone one year. Then the following year, I ripped my AC ligament. This was in my late 30s.
Okay, so you're still a kid. That's good.
I was holding on to my youth. I'm like, I can do this. And I took off these jumps and missed them. And that's when I said, okay, that's it. I'm not 20 anymore. So I had to retire. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
When you look at the United States, we're looking at 3-point-something million sports injuries per year.
Yeah.
At the professional level, it's different, or at the elite athlete level, it's different, because they work on those things to prepare. And actually, when you look at it, the injury rate is lower. And people think of them as reckless, and they're not. They're the most prepared, calculated, thought-out, planned. If you see Travis Rice dropping down the front of a mountain coming down in his snowboard from the middle of nowhere, and I operated on him and fixed him after that big blowout. I'm in the movie, The Fourth Phase, when it comes out to me. It's me wheeling him into the operating room. I'm not going to go drop off that preface and go straight down.
Right.
But he has calculated that out for every angle, from every take, through every condition of the snow, through everything else. That's not just someone out taking a crazy run down the hill. You know, the most devastating injuries we see are brain and spinal cord. A lot of the head injuries in football for cumulative impact. I've been working with Raiders for years, and now learning that 5 times the rate of mental deterioration or dementia in the NFL alumni. But it all gets down to the same thing, which is preparation and training for your sport.
Yeah.
When you work with the LA Kings, what was the most common injury?
Hockey, interestingly, is one of the lower rate of injury sports.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's crazy.
Wouldn't necessarily think
Who
that the way it
knew?
looks, but who'd have thought? The fact in hockey, you don't suddenly stop, except against the walls when they get in the way, and they tend to duck well coming out of it. A lot of body injuries from just the impact, upper body, shoulder injuries, a lot of facial injuries before they mandated the helmets, and now almost all of them wear masks to get rid of the eye injuries. So a lot of more minor injuries and less disabling, and then the concussions.